actually got a microphone. Right.
Yeah.
Something was that time.
Yeah, maybe you're right. That's the composition bit.
Yeah, but like, I mean, that's a track or something like that. But
Yeah,
it sounded wrong to me.
Okay, I'm going to just plug
I think that
mic in for a second then speak into it.
I wanted to sound a bit more wavy, so people like,
Yeah.
But then it's like, maybe I could make it better with mixing.
Hey, how you doing, mate? How's things?
Okay, is this testing? 1, 2, 1, 2. Hello everyone. So welcome to this very impromptu Beat Boot TapeRack Demo. In typical Beat Boot fashion, I'm not ready, so I'm going to leave this mess doing something in the background whilst people come in, and fit up these last few modules. But thanks for tuning in and checking out this madness, and hopefully we'll be on with the show soon. Cheers now.
I'm a big fan of the tiny radio.
Yeah.
live stream?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not quite sure what I'm doing, but we'll see how it goes.
There's biscuits, if anyone wants some biscuits. Bring
Bringing them out.
We've got bourbon, we've got milks, we've got some custard creams. Fresh beans. Handmade packets. By hand,
Yeah.
not by machine. Right, put that one down.
We used to do some mix. I've not been in the studio for a I've been away.
Do let me know at any point if you need it back. But the gig went really well.
Yeah, amazing.
Really well. It was
I'm very happy to hear that.
like
Hello.
we had quite a lot of people. But
Did you do it in the keynote?
yeah, it's the first time I've done
This one
something
we-
downstairs in
I'm
Kingdom.
gonna be here.
That space is fantastic.
It's great. It's like a really lovely balance between being like a community space and like not being completely like taken advantage of like a
Yeah.
community space. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's a good, I mean, it's been, I remember going to like weird experimental shows over that in Bristol 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Pretty reliably.
Popping the last couple of bits in, and then I'll go. How's
no
everyone?
problem, mate.
You're all good?
Yeah, we're good, mate.
I think my brother.
I went to your tape workshop.
I remember you. Yeah.
Yeah,
How did you? Have you have a go since then, or?
Not so much, unfortunately.
I know what this is life, innit?
Yeah, I know. I was finishing my degree at the time, so I was just had to put myself down.
really
I still
nice
have the tape that I made.
Oh, that's lovely.
I
Yeah.
will buy more tapes and I will try to.
Yeah. So you're all done with the studying thing then?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a nice feeling. If you can pop it. Hey, you're right. You're relentlessly in the game though, aren't you? You don't. It's like Golden Gate Bridge. You finish one and then you come back again, don't you? Yeah. Right. Well, I think all I'm going to do is plug in that headset and I'll just talk into that.
Biscuits. It's going to be me that time. Yeah. It's going to be me with biscuits. Yeah, go on. Yeah, go on.
No, I'm good.
I've been away. I was away in Barcelona for 3 weeks.
Yeah,
Recently.
right into this kind of thing.
So.
Okay, let's see if this is going to work then. Work. Right. Hello, and welcome to this very spontaneous kind of impromptu TapeRack demo. I don't really know where to begin with this, but a bit like tape loops, things don't necessarily. We're used to things starting and finishing, but I think it's quite fitting how much this is going to jump all over the place. There's no beginning, there's no end, although there is a little bit of end in sight. I've finally got to a point where I've accepted the limitations of the TapeRack system. I was never going to be able to perfect this, and that was part of the learning process. It's taken me kind of a year to realise that, on top of trying to juggle lots of other things in life. I haven't been able to address all the problems, but I think that has led to a place where this has its own character, and that in its own way is perfectly, okay. Trying to aim for perfection is something that will just leave you feeling quite, cold and hollow in life. So we've just got to accept kind of where it's at. But yeah, I guess a lot's happened since I first launched this idea of kind of TapeRack, since Super Booth, and I was absolutely blown away by the response to it. To be honest, I wasn't expecting that, and if anything, it was a little bit too much. So I remember emailing one guy back saying I need to sleep now, and of all the people, that was the one that ended up on a forum. So that was quite funny. But yeah, even after a year from it, I'm still kind of in the wake of that and trying to catch up with my mouth and everything that I said at the time. But it took me in some interesting directions. I mean, I realised these difficulties and these hang-ups with the system. Although in some respects it seems like an absolute perfect application, having a tape loop in 1U, the more I looked into different tape machines and different delay systems, I realised that although this meant it fitted nicely in this system, there were a lot of things that I would have preferred to have done if I just designed a tape machine from scratch that wouldn't have ended up with it in this kind of format. Some of those prototypes, which I'll try and show off a little bit today, but I wish this mic was a bit longer.
Do you want a stackable?
Yeah, we might be able to do that. Actually, yeah, there's a mono cable.
There's nothing more stackable than nothing more modular than stacking your
Stackable cables.
Yeah.
There we go.
Try that.
Go on, it's one of those.
Stacking your vocal mic.
It's only going to make the noise floor. It can't make the noise floor worse. That's
More
what
noise.
Yeah. Okay, let's see if that works. Amazing. I was just joking off mic. The noise floor of this intercom mic is. Yeah, it's a pretty lo-fi mic, so no problems adding a big unshielded cable like that. We're all right. There's a lot of things that I would have liked to have done, differently. Looking at lots of other tape machines, it's quite normal to have the heads arced, and what they'll make possible is like having tension and pressure on the tape. To overcome that, I started to try and do things like, put bearings in here. I started trying to make tensioners, really overcomplicating it. And a bit of a story, a common theme with all this kind of stuff is you sort one problem out and then you make another. And I guess that's just the paradox of life, kind of messing with you for trying and iron out this nonsense. I've been playing around with some different ideas. This machine down here, which is I've used like 4 tape heads kind of in an arc. And what's amazing about this configuration is it just didn't actually need any kind of tensioner. If I get it going now, and it is pretty lo-fi and janky. This one doesn't even have a record section. Where's it? screwdriver about? Ben, did you see that?
It's just right in front of me.
Yeah, on the other.
Oh, nice one. Yeah, thank you very much. But yeah, it's already not going as planned, but we'll carry on with the show. Okay, so something that I've kind of come to terms with these is I wanted to create a really sophisticated tensioner, you know, and a loading mechanism, and in the end, you know, the more I complicated it, the more there was to go wrong. And so what I've done, yeah, you're right, Ben?
Quick question for
Yeah.
anyone who isn't familiar with tape. What is a tensioner and why do you need it?
Okay, so the difference between it working and not, basically.
Okay.
You're right. You'd be amazed how finicky. So for anyone who didn't hear that on the live stream, Ben was just asking, like, what is a tensioner and why is it important? So on a lot of tape machines, you know, there'll be some kind of swinging arm. If you've seen a Wen copycat, there's a big spring-loaded arm on there. And so what it does is it basically makes sure that the tape is as taut as possible. And then that will mean that the tape makes a better surface area contact with the head. And it's incredible how even just the slightest bit of pressure difference will actually completely ruin the game. So just to show you that, Ben, before we go on, if I get this weird noodly thing going again, all we're going to do is plug an oscillator into the TapeRack system. And then hopefully we'll be able to hear it in a second. Oh. Okay, so at the moment it sounds a bit like a swarm of bees, but that's because we've got like several oscillators. We've got 3 heads in this system, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But I'm just going to show you the difference between having tension and not. So I have made some prototypes where we've got big swinging arms with swinging arms with springs on them. But what I realised was that I could potentially just do it with the return. This is the return wheel, which is like a bearing I've mounted. And if we just take that off just a mil, okay, so that was about 2 mil. And can you hear it's cutting out now? Yeah? You know, if we maybe move this one over as well, just to take a little bit more pressure off. Okay. So can you hear it's like cutting out quite a lot more? And as soon as we tighten this up, so it just means that one, the volume will be louder. 2, it won't cut in and out so much. So and also we'll get a better frequency response. So the drop off of the high frequencies, we wouldn't be able to tell with that so much because it was just a straight tone. But the high frequencies really start to drop off. Now, in some respects, that's kind of interesting, and it is still doing that a little bit. You know, cutting in and out, but I've got to a point where it's acceptable. 2, it's not going to break. You know, if I add some sliding guides here, it'll just be a case of you leaving, say, 2 HP and pushing it until it's taut for you.
So sort of manually tensioning the tape by moving the modules left and right.
Yeah. Because the other ways of doing it would be to have a spring, and then the more and more I look to that is the possibility to go wrong. It's a very, very fine line. This way, part of my ethos with this and where I'm kind of going, it's kind of where I'm going with this is I want you to be able to maintain and work with your own system. It shouldn't be a case of, you know, having to get a technical manual or even having to ask the manufacturer. I'm expecting and hoping people to get actively involved in making these work as good as possible. If you can come up with a tensioner, do it. If you can come up with a better, you know, system, perhaps breakout reels, do it. Like, I'm going to call this system the Proto TapeRack, because it's actually gone backwards to where it was at Superbooth. Instead of trying to incorporate all these extra things that I've done, I've left it raw instead of having the ball bearings, which then created other problems because they wear out, they rattled, all sorts of things. It was just it was almost funny. The more I tried to make it better, the worse it got. So, does anyone here want me to explain how a tape machine works, or you kind of got an idea of what's going on here with the arrangement of the tape rack?
I think I've got a pretty good.
Yeah.
So there's just, because I see there's sort of multiple different head modules, one of which is a different colour.
Yeah.
Do they have sort of separate functions?
Yeah,
or?
that's it. So any tape, well, we'll start with some very, very basic tape machines. The most basic kind of tape machine will, for example, these vary speeds, which I modify, and we'll just turn that up a bit. Now that's going.
Zoom in. How do we zoom in on this thing?
I've got some really janky tape loops, which I've just recorded last night. This one I found particularly funny.
Elevator sounds.
Elevator sounds.
Elevator music.
It had to happen at some point, didn't it? So the most basic kind of tape machines will just have a single head. A tape head is effectively kind of the opposite of a capacitor. Instead of storing voltage, it stores charge. Now, without going into loads and loads of blah-de-blah physics, which in all honesty I'm still trying to get my head around, what it's doing is it's converting a stored magnetic field on a tape, and then it's converting that back to a signal that we can read. More sophisticated tape machines will start to have several heads. There's a reason why they do this, because if you try to, it's kind of like a camel by committee. If you try and make a tape head for recording and for playing back, it's always going to be a compromise, which is what kind of led me towards this system. These tape heads are actually specifically chosen for each of their functions. So I'm hoping that I've gone a lot further than what's out there on the market. People will look and see that most of the tape machines we're sold now are at best like dictaphones, really. All of them are set up for voice recording. Even the whole nature of tape cassette has all been done to a price point. They narrowed the width of the tracks, they slowed the speed of the tape down. All these things were done basically to maximise the profit, to minimise costs, whilst keeping it just acceptable, just about acceptable. And then it's gone even further now in that we don't even have the tape machines which are capable of recording them. So by having all of these separate heads then, what I've been able to do is customise the circuits for them. So we've got on the left, I'll just start and talk about the whole system, but we've got a motor, and at the moment, we've just got a drone going into it, but I think what we'll put is our elevator music, wherever that went. And then we're going to now mix in some of the heads, he says. Oh, it'd help if, okay. So we've got our motor, obviously that's the first thing you need to make the tape go round. And then the next thing along is, say we've got a signal on there, we need to erase it. So to send the tape back to absolute blank. Now, coming back to very, very basic tape machines, these will just have a permanent magnet in them. So, yes, that will erase your signal, but what it's doing to the tape effectively is, rather than, it's basically forcing all the particles to go in one direction. Now, if we measured that with, say, the output, we would see a DC offset for a start. Yeah, and there's going to be a high noise floor. If we use AC erasing, which is what used to be in quality tape machines, rather than using a permanent magnet, which just aligns all the tape in all the magnetic field in one direction, if we use an AC bias arrays, what it's effectively doing is using a high frequency signal above audio rate to equally align the particles up and down. Now in effect what they will do is then cancel each other out. So you end up with a much lower noise floor, and the word is, you return this to kind of being virgin tape again. Now all of these things happen in theory. The nice thing is I've tried to use all this clever technology, and it's ended up better than these, but I still feel like there's a long way to go. And the nuances of kind of working with these, my arrays circuit I'm pretty happy with, but when we use the same circuit from this arrays, and we then start to use that in our record circuit as well. Very cheap tape machines will use a DC offset to record a signal. I'm using that same bias, so it's kind of effectively linearizing the recording process. Now it's still a bit distorted and overblown, but if we now introduce some of this, and we're going to send this sound up to the record head. So you hear it's got this tone, very distorted, but if we bring it down a bit more, it sounds very ethereal. At the moment we've got 3 heads all playing at the same time, so we could just have the one head. You can kind of hear it delay. I haven't been erasing, so it's just adding it on top. But now if we erase, we get a better delay. So this second head is a record head. It's different to this erase head in that, as I was saying, you can tailor the head more to its purpose. Lots of weird things go on. It actually records on the trailing edge. We want a different inductance. There's different things going on. Then these playback heads I've picked specifically to have a really high inductance, so that they can pick up the signal on the tape and play them back well. So that's why they're different heads, different amounts of inductance. Different kind of gaps on them, gap widths. Different materials as well. So there's a whole world of stuff going on there, and I'm still getting started with it. Yeah.
Quick question from the chat.
Yeah.
Someone's asked, can you still buy like new tape heads?
Not easily.
Not easily.
So if you want to buy tape heads, the best thing to do is eBay, to be honest. I probably shouldn't say that because now everyone's going to be
everyone's going to snap up.
but I was very lucky in that Fonk were able to help me out with some tape heads which I'll be using going forwards. Yeah. But this first proto system, I was able to get a set of 20 heads on eBay. Now, I'm going to sound like an old man, but they don't make them like they used to, and they really don't. If you're going to buy a new tape head now, that's say been manufactured in the last 5 years or whatever, because they'll be sat in the factory for ages, you'll find that they'll generally be made for this kind of tape machine. They'll be the universal type, so it's not great at either, but it will do it. If you really want to make a nice one-off, what I would recommend is either modifying a tape machine that's already made. A lot of the work's already been done, and you'll realise when you start to try and make your own transports and mount your own heads that, wow, didn't they get it right? I mean, you don't even so. I know it sounds really odd, but even a printer, you look at something like that, and how on earth did they ever get that to? I mean, I know they don't work quite a lot of the time, and you want to chuck them in the bin, but how on earth did they ever get all these intricate mechanisms to come together or think about it? And the same is true of tape machines. When I open them up and take them apart, which is what I'm doing to quite often get my heads, the new tape scrubber is made from recycled dictaphones. So yeah, if I'm having to do that, that's for a reason. So yeah, if you find a good source of new tape heads, let me know. But if you want some real nice quality heads, look for new old stock of, I think it's called Nootropics. It was an American brand, but there's still a few of those around. But expect to pay, you can pay in excess of £100 for one of these heads.
Jesus
so I'm
Christ.
trying to find ideally, I would have liked to. This whole system is. Yeah, I should kind of talk a little bit about the ethos of this, as well as making it, wanting to make it like customizable and serviceable for people. I also want to make it affordable. I could very easily run away the costs and say, well, you buy it and you make it and you sell it, but there's no way I would have been able to afford it, and so I think it's nice to make it accessible as possible. So using, I might have to go back to using some of these cheaper heads, but if I find a good source of 1/4 inch tape heads, which are the kind you have on reel-to-reels, I will make another version. What we'll see when that happens is that everything is improved. Your record signal becomes so much stronger and cleaner, your replay is better. Everything gets better when you use wider tape, and also speeding it up. So most tape machines will only go at 2.4 centimeters per second. So things happen when you go way too fast. And of course you're then battling mechanical issues and motor noise, which will then start to compete. All these things, it's just hilarious. Like the more, so I kept speeding it up and thinking I'm going to get a better, and then all of a sudden what you're gaining is offset by the motor noise just coming through the noise floor, and then anyway. So it's I've kind of I haven't come to an absolute conclusion with that. Very strange things happen, with tape. As you're recording, you have to apply certain EQs to get it to record flat, and the same when you play back. So there's 2 stages there. And then that is also all dependent on the tape tension, the tape pressure, the type of tape, the bloody which way the wind's blowing, everything else. So by going to these 1/4 inch heads, I think eventually that's going to be the way to go with it. But I'm kind of happy with how it's sounding at the moment. And the last part of this system that I just wanted to show people is very simply just a return. Again, as part of me trying to do this at a cost point and make it serviceable, I've kept everything easy. This bearing, it's a flanged one, it will come off with a couple of tools, and you'll be able to repair it. Any of these heads can be replaced. Heads do wear out. All of these guides, you'll be able to, if you want, add extra guides. You could, if you were inventive enough, you could have 2 rows of 1U and then start to break your loop out into bigger spaces. So I like the idea of people thinking about this more as a customizable kind of machine. So I'm just going to show, we've got some strange stuff going through at the moment, and I'm actually going to put my voice into it. So there's different ways that this thing can be used. It doesn't, let me get back on the thing.
So you mentioned sort of 1/4 inch tape.
Yep.
What size tape does this currently use?
Yeah, so testing, there we go. So Ben was just asking like what kind of tape does this one use at the moment. So this uses standard cassette tape, which is 1/8 inch, and it's the most commonly found. You will be able to pick up really cheap packs of used tape cassettes on eBay for don't pay more than 50p a tape really. That's what you want to be aiming for. Any more than that and you're just inflating the price. So if everyone sticks to that, we can beat inflation. Okay, so
Tape economics.
Yeah, tape economics. Together we are stronger. So we've got, our signal coming through, and at the moment, as it goes round, we can't hear it there, but now we've got one head. You can kind of hear that layering up. It's erasing as it comes back around. And I think my voice is also going to it. But if we turn off the erase head, turn it off like that, hopefully, and you can kind of hear bits of me, like it's sound on sound, so it's going to be muffled, it's mixed with the old sound. But as well as using it as a delay, you can use it like a looper and a recorder. So let's take something a little bit more obvious, maybe like an oscillator. And so it'll just keep recording, and you can just keep adding stuff on top. I made some tape loops last night from some. This is a good example of what. So what we're doing at the moment is called sound on sound. So we're forcing a recording back on top of a recording without erasing it. So we've disabled this first head. There's a switch here. You can hear there it's cleaned up again. And then if we do this, we've got our weird delayed version, and it will start adding on top, he says. Testing. Oh, that's why, because we're listening to this. And then you might want to... So you can leave stuff kind of just on the tape, and we can then listen to, if we fatten it up, by listening to all the heads, we'll get like a delay of our stored loop. So, not just a tape delay. The first way I kind of showed it working is we were recording, erasing the tape, recording and then playing back 3 versions of it and kind of layering that up with the original audio. What we're doing now is we're just sending audio straight to it, and then we're recording it on top of the signal that's already there, and it will just keep going round. And what you might, what I like doing is getting the best of both worlds. Why not use a digital DSP as well as analog, delay, and then you can start getting some really interesting effects. Because the heads, if I wanted to get this kind of like Carper's strong kind of flangey, stuff going, we'll need a really small gap between our tape heads, so it just extends the range of it a bit further. I've shown a couple of ways of messing around with it, but my favourite thing that this does is it reminds me of what it was like to play with a Eurorack system for the first time. So, as you might know if you've played around with this stuff, there is what I kind of think of as a honeymoon period. This period where you don't know exactly what it's going to do, and it keeps just giving you results, beautiful results. And unfortunately, the way we are, we'll keep going down safe paths because that's what we're like. We're driven mainly by fear rather than positive things. Quite often we're scared of the unknown, and so we'll just keep doing the same thing. Now, what's really interesting about this machine is when you start to make it listen to itself, kind of like having an existential crisis, or being able to hear an echo in your head or whatever, it then starts to behave in a new way. So if I take an oscillator, we're going to use Platts just because it's got loads of different waveforms in it. And we're going to get rid of that. Okay. So we've got our drone, and we're going to erase it. And then send that signal that we're hearing now back up to the recorder. Okay, so we've just got a lush kind of delayed version of what we're doing. So as well as having delay, there's different ways of doing delay. We can either have multiple heads to hear a delayed version of a recorded signal, but you can do and mimic something quite similar by just using two heads, one record and one playback, and sending the signal from your playback head back to the record. Now this, with that delayed version we're hearing in a second, we're getting 3 identical kind of reproductions. Now modular being the way it is, you can have this patched up to do different things, different filter banks, you know, even digital samplers after, all sorts of stuff. But, as Ben knows, life is feedback. So, if we take part of...
Time for the blog.
Oh yeah, yeah. The other thing I'm going to need from you at some point today, Ben, is a "it's all right." When it starts to fuck up, that's the other saying in here, isn't it? It's all right. Yeah,
It's all right.
It'll be all right. That's it. So if we start taking a bit of what we can hear, and we're going to send it into a filter, and then we're going to start. Listening to itself, then trying to have a conversation with itself whilst listening to itself, whilst having a conversation with itself whilst listening to itself. And depending... And then if we cut this down a bit, feedback will, give me a second, will all depend. Let me get the mic back on because people will be wondering where I've gone. Testing, there we go. Excuse me, I don't know where that went then. Okay, yeah, so, that's not good, test. There we go. Sorry about that. So, as you heard, it kind of starts to scream a bit by itself. The tone and the frequency of the feedback will all depend on the filter, the speed of the tape, but this is where the modular stuff starts to come into its own. It's quite amazing, that. So instead of just sending it, for example, straight to our filter, what if we started to add DSP effects? So, like, it's as well as being an instrument. I can't do this, can I? As well as being a tape delay and a looper, it's also possible to create tones with it, you know, and use it as an oscillator, which is kind of why I haven't got this done. I've got completely and utterly sidetracked by all the different possibilities with what I could do with this. So over a year ago at Superbooth, I kind of launched this idea as it is, and you know, I had a lot of people interested, and I didn't feel like it was ready, and it's really weird, and people are going to be annoyed that, you know, I've gone. Yeah, it's ready now. It's fine. You know, as you heard, it has a character, it does a certain thing, it's not perfect, but I think it's beautiful. TapeRack, I think, was always an inevitability. If I didn't build it, someone else was going to. Yes. If I didn't, someone else was going to. I don't feel like this is my own work. I feel like I've been pulled in this direction. You know, it's very strange looking back at the things that happened to me when I started Beep Boop Electronics. Even the first module I brought out was this kind of tape sampler module. And so, yeah, I'm glad to see it at a point where I think at the end of the week I'm going to make 5 sets of these available to the people who are on a very dusty old waiting list, get some feedback from them, and then hopefully we'll have them in the shop as well at some point. But it led me in lots of different directions because I didn't feel like it was perfect, and I wanted to see what other possibilities were out there. You know, all this time spent trying to make my own transport and motor and guide system, it was a bit of a chicken and egg situation. The record levels, was it too hot, or was it the playback was too hot? And so I went backwards and I thought, well, what can I start with that I can trust? And so I started working on these little weird things, which are called U-tape scrubbers. Let me put this over here. So this is a very, very weird instrument in that it's only a basic dictaphone, but it's made me think very differently about how I make music. Unlike this system, which is fully customizable, the U-tape scrubber, I feel kind of lends itself quite well to making strange compositions, working with a very small tape loop and the immediacy of kind of punching in and playing back. But unlike the the TapeRack system, it has limitations. It can only play or record at one time, and so this is kind of what it ended up with. I was then able to, because I trusted this tape transport and I had the tension and different things worked out, I was able to focus on the record and the playback circuit. So yeah, let's have a little listen to that. I'm going to plug this into a mixer. For some reason, guarantee they do work, but Ben's basically made a Faraday cage in here. I don't know if anyone's seen, but with all this metal, it's not very good for radios anymore. But yeah, I kind of, this whole, like I said, it's starting to fit into a wider system. The TapeRack system is me reimagining Eurorack before Eurorack. Most of this kind of stuff is catered towards analog or digital analog digital modules, which are like oscillators, but this has really given me a different way of thinking about it. I wanted to imagine what it would be like to have a system before Eurorack existed. So using different sound sources that were available before Eurorack, things like contact mics and this electret mic, for example, that I'm using, microphones, and also radio. These were this was my starting point with this philosophy of kind of TapeRack. A way of grabbing sounds from outside of your system, sampling it within the tape system, processing it, and then it's very circular, creating tape loop compositions to then maybe play live with. Me and Ben were talking about this the other day, and it's interesting how we're both starting to come full circle with this. Like, I used to play improvised, kind of gabber, hard tech kind of stuff with a system, and I used to do it all on the fly, live. I'd spend a lot of time patching up some kind of workable jam box, groove box or whatever, and then go and perform with it. And it was great that it was within certain constraints, but what I could have done and which is equally valid, is pre-prepare some material, and so this is leading me more in that place now, into a different way of thinking about music, rather than just going ham on a fucking 4/4, you know, techno thing, and then doing feedback and, you know, break beats. It's for the whole approach of kind of using tape loops is making me think more about this, like having a contextualized, saved version of a moment in time, something beautiful that I've created and will last, you know. Although even that is just as paradoxical, you know, nothing lasts, and even though we've tried to capture a moment, it will degrade. But hopefully not within my lifetime, but yeah, it's still around. So it's starting to, you know, fit into a bigger system, as well as perhaps processing, you know, and playing live with this. This instrument has lends itself very well to creating these small, weird tape loops, which I can then play with live. Having a few of these at the same time, so you know, we might have an absolutely bizarre thing like this, and then we can take we can just keep adding to the loop.
So you can come round if you need
Yeah, come in. So, for immediate, and be able to create these weird compositions. We can. And of course I'm using a digital DSP delay. And we're using it at different speeds. Will give you different length of loop, so you can make different length compositions. But I should have a volume control here somewhere, but I don't, so I'm just going to do this. And we'll swap to another sample. Now this style of recording is called sound on sound. So this is the same as when we were turning off the erase head up here and just kept recording back on top of itself. Now that does have limitations in terms of the replay output. What it will do is kind of saturate the tape, and all that your amplifier will be looking for is differences. So the more you saturate the tape with sound, eventually it'll get to a point where it's just seeing almost like the crest of a wave, but not seeing the body of water underneath it. And the more you push that, you know, it will start to sound thin. But what I love about this is then the way it mixes into everything else. So having these sounds which maybe aren't a full-bodied kind of full spectrum EQ reproduction of a sound, original sound, which you can then layer it up with the original. So we've got this kind of going, and then we can. So what else is that? Oh, that would help for what now that's Morse code. So it's very loud, and you can hear it's like constantly erasing over the tape. Now,
Do you know what it says in Morse code?
No, but I do have some very. Actually, I think it might be the last transmission. So there was a radio station at one point that transmitted with Morse code, and it was the last broadcast, and it says something along the lines of "on this sweet night" or something, you know, farewell. It's a quote from someone more learned could tell you, but I love this kind of thing of putting together these very strange tape loops for myself. Like, what this has kind of forced me to do, unlike my Gabba sets, which, you know, there was no space in it. It was just dush, 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 over and over again. You know, it would scream for the first time in my life, and people probably laugh when they hear me say this because I talk so much, but I am trying to listen more. And that's a strange thing. There's listening on different levels. There's like listening, but there's also having the mental space to listen, because most of the time we're fighting with our own inner voices, you know. And so by creating a tape loop and letting go of control, I kind of force myself to sit and listen to these things more, and then start to imagine them, and you know what could be on top of them. You know, I love recording relaxing things from YouTube. Now, if you're looking for sample folder, just YouTube and get one of these line to Euros. So what it does is it will just amplify a signal up to Eurac level. And so if we take a big long cable, and this might be able to then take us back to that point I was saying earlier. When we were recording to this U-tape scrubber, everything was kind of forcing, you know, hard forcing over the old recording. Cheers, mate. I'm all over the place. If we take a little bit more control over the levels as we're recording to it, we can start to mix the sounds a bit more. So that's just some nice, like, rain. Try and relax. Everything's okay, Jack. It's all okay.
It's okay. It's going to be okay.
It's not broken. It's fine, Jack. It's okay. And then St. Paul Tass said to me is you need to slow the tape. I won't do a Dutch accent, but you need to slow the tape down. No one likes chipmunks, but something I'm going to show you in a minute is that you can speed things up if you like. When I do want to do hard tape, what I found was I've set this speed so it will do what is it, 1/4 for like up to 180 BPM. So it's possible to kind of time it so that the loop fits loosely around like a hard tech, you know, rhythm or beat. You know, if you start, but anyway, that's a different way. At the moment we're slowing it down, and then we can take some of these other weird. This is some hold music I found. So, and that I was erasing. We can start to mix more in. The only disadvantage with this is that, yeah, there you go. So now that, I'm sure I've seen some videos on YouTube that say lo-fi blah blah or whatever, and it's got like 18 million views, and you know, just do this with like rain window or something.
Lo-fi, you're in the haunted Victorian mansion.
Yeah. But
you're hiding in the bathroom.
And so you can see how unintentionally it's created something new, but then in the same way, if anyone's used a Turing machine, you know, this kind of style of twist until happy, Turing machine's a sequencer where you can produce melodies randomly and then you can lock it. So you might give away control to randomness, and then when you hear something you like, you lock it and you keep it. And so I kind of think of these tape loops a bit like that. You know, if it doesn't sound right, just keep recording until something happens. But as well as doing these kind of ambient, nice things, or relatively, you know, I quite like using it for, you know, hard style kind of stuff. So if I could get here we go. So sample wise, your phone I don't know why I didn't do this more when I was younger. You know, we think that we've got to have everything in our Eurorack system, but you don't. You know, don't overcomplicate or you know, price yourself out. Just grab some stuff. So this is my test record. And so, where did that little loop go? Is that? So we're going to get this going. Oh, it helped if the head was engaged. You can do things like this where you take a bit of that. Now what I'm going to do on the other U-tape scrubbers is see if I can get some going as well. Maybe we'll just keep using the same track because it's going to have the same tempo. Be louder. You know, I'm all over the place, but you can kind of see the... I'm hoping you can kind of see the potential there for like nuttiness. You know, it doesn't... You can do stuff that isn't... you know what you'd expect. Okay, now we've got our loopy loop here thing, doing things, looping and going around, and we're going to send just. We'll do that. That's why. Okay, let's. Okay. So that's one, you know, a couple of ways you can use it for making strange collages of just random noises, like I was with the, from here, you know, we can make, you know, as the Morse code, we can make random compositions and just keep recording on top. We can make nice ambient kind of loops with stuff, you know, slowed down. You can speed stuff up. A bit like I did, I was recording in the middle and then I double timed it or whatever. So yeah, there's a load of different ways to use it. Now I had this kind of brainwave and I was like, I want to scratch tape. Like I want to see whether it's possible. You know, is it possible? Kind of. Let's take an oscillator so we can really hear this, okay? And I'm going to use a high frequency because then we can slow it down more and still be in an audible range, okay? And we're going to go full speed. Now that first one's sound on sound, so you can hear a bit of that underneath, but we're just going to go back to a straight tone. Oh, so I didn't show you as well. You hear that's just one recording. Okay, just one tone, but now I can do sound on sound. I can go. You know, layer stuff up. So we've got a relatively interesting loop. The thing I really love about this is it does away with any traditional way of thinking about Eurorack. I am very bored of microcontroller-based sequencers. There's something, you know, really nostalgic about listening to an 8-step or, you know, 7-step sequencer out of phase and doing that whole, you know, Silver Apples thing. But yeah, get out the box, get out the grid. Like, try something that gives you different results. So, you were able to see just by working with this tape loop, you know, no sequencer, you can play to the tape rather than sequencing it and then take these small loops. Now we've got that, I just want to show you what's possible with this. So we're going to now apply, so the U-tape scrubber has like a CV input, and then so it's not quite there. I think I've got a bit of work to do with that yet, but I'm absolutely chuffed. It's also quite fun for recording like this. So, you know, you can hear we've got this weird... You know, we start recording these bits on top. And then you start to get a feel for it. So I can just get it spinning. I've set this so that once you get it, because I can't go any faster than that, that'll be the maximum speed. And so this is going to record now at the max. Yeah? So there's things you can do to calibrate. You notice it's a bit on or off. If we start to lower the attenuation, so it's got more control. So for scratching, you want it more on and off. Let's take voice actually, or we're going to use...
I've got some voice samples if you want some voice samples.
Yeah, go on.
Should be some in the...
Nice one.
There you go.
Then. Hey! Teamwork, love it. Woo! So, we're going to raise that.
Takes a flight, and the DJ makes it right.
So you can see how playable. I wasn't even looking then.
Where your body begins to tremble, and your hands become just a little nimble.
And then add a bit of delay on it.
Where the party children are waiting, and there's no contemplating. At the underground, the diva starts screaming. Diva starts where your feet can take a flight, and the DJ makes it right.
So this one.
Diva starts
Now I've only been playing with it for like a few evenings. I really don't know how to use it, but we'll get there though.
The diva starts screaming. When divas come are being where your booty starts and the DJ makes it.
So there you go. Pretty weird stuff. This U-tape scrubber. Oh, that's that. Nice. Yeah. So yeah. I'm trying to get to a point where, you know, you can see I naturally end up doing harder stuff, or wanting to go faster and faster and faster. But it does work very well for doing the classic kind of ambient stuff. So don't take that as an example of what it's supposed to sound like. But yeah, that's where I'm going with the U-Tape scrubber. There might be possibilities to have a breakout for this and multiple heads. And then I realised what you're fucking doing, Jack. Just get back on with what you actually started here. So that's a bit of a demo of what I've been up to with those. But does anyone want a brew? Yeah, does anyone want a cup of tea? Yeah, because I'm getting a bit parched now. So should we have a little break for a bit then?
I think maybe because it's 8:30 now.
Yeah, so that's an hour.
Worth sort of maybe put the kettle on, wind up, and then maybe people.
Are there people actually in the chat?
There's people in the chat.
Oh wow! Okay.
In the chat. I mean, actually, maybe before. I was just thinking.
Oh wait, just as a little. Here we are. So thank you very much. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much. Oh no, that's the wrong one. Yeah, no, if I plugged it in. I promise you, these things do work. Right, okay, let's see if I can. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
All right.
Thank you very much. Right, we're gonna have a cup of tea. See you in a bit.
There we go. All right. I'm gonna